class, please. Take your seats. I'm so happy and proud to introduce our professor, wonderful violinist, pedagogue, friend, member of Keshet Eilon faculty. Everybody ready? Yes. Yes, Robin Wilson, please, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Itzhak. Hi, everyone. Just so everyone knows approximately when they're playing, we've I think six people playing today, only 10 or 15 minutes each. So I won't let you play the whole movement. We'll just do a chunk and then we'll do some work. So we've got an order just according to pianist availability. So Anthony's going to start, then Tokuji, and then Nikita, and then we'll have Harry, Alon, and Nova. About 15 minutes each, okay? Wonderful. Can you tell everyone what you're going to play?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Anthony, and I'll be playing the first movement of Brahms' A major sonata.
sorry to stop you. So, as a general comment, what would you say is unusual about the opening of this sonata? We go straight into the very beginning.
It's like a dialogue with the piano. I'm sort of repeating his motive. It's like I'm repeating the ends of motives that he started.
Yeah, I would say you're finishing and you're turning a 4-bar phrase into a 5-bar phrase, which is unusual, isn't it? So what you're playing is not a new event. And I think what I'd like to hear in general a lot more is an awareness of how your line completes that 5-bar phrase, but is not something completely new. Yeah? We'll have a look at the two opening phrases. As another general comment, when you get to thematic material, I don't think it's any accident that this sonata, being amabile, is in 3. It gives it a lovely lilt. And the lilt is like, it's like a tender waltz in a sense. I think we need to find something in the meter. What I'm hearing is you're playing with a lot of portato, and you're losing a sense of the spin of that meter. And the vibrato is not helping either. The vibrato, you're not quite telling me the story of the shape of each phrase with the vibrato. The vibrato is slightly disconnected and it's not really reflecting the arch of your lines. So let's go from the beginning and let's see if we can find an opening that makes a little more sense with the piano, yeah? Nice, good. So, first phrase, what harmony are we in? Is it the same as the second phrase? No. No, so we're in dominant harmony and then we're resolving in tonic harmony, yeah? So can we make a little more difference between these two and see if you can anticipate your sound a little so there's more connection. So we don't hear that Evgeny finishes and you begin, but we just hear that you continue the line. Yeah? When we're in 3, we're really in 1. And I want you to think of 3 as a spin. So if we have a weighted wheel, the 1 is at the bottom. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So we don't have 3 equal beats. Yep. If we have 3 equal beats, we lose the sense of lilt. And then we hear the function of the quavers as being tucked into that spin, as leading, and they seemingly have a purpose within the line. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's see if we can find the lilt of your phrase. Maybe we'll just do a couple of bars before. But now you're releasing so much that we don't have a connection. So feel the lilt of the meter but still with a sense of singing through the bar. Very nice. Good. So there's another marking that's very particular or important in Brahms in this first phrase. What do you see? A hairpin. Hairpin. And what is the function of the hairpin? What is that meaning?
To emphasize the top of the phrase.
It's definitely an emphasis, but in Brahms you have to think of hairpins as not just decibels. So it's not just getting louder and softer with an emphasis at the top, but it's very much giving you like a roadmap of rubato or a sense of the flexibility of that phrase. So often hairpins are used to denote the top, the peak of the phrase, but with an expressive stretch. And the crescendo to the top can be also accompanied by a flow. So I want you to feel a spin now. You almost have a sense that you are flowing to the top and giving the time back on that top note. There's a wonderful quote of a pianist who witnessed Brahms playing a lot. Fanny Davies was her name, and she studied with Brahms and she saw him perform all the time, and she said he would linger at the peaks of phrases, not on one note alone, but on the entire peak of the phrase, as if unable to tear himself away from its beauty. He has this sort of sense. Seen that picture of Brahms at the piano like this, just relishing the top of the phrase. Amabile, you have to feel like there's a sense of that expressive lingering. It's very slight. You don't change the meter, but it adds to the expression, and that's what the hairpin means. Can we see if we can find that? Was lovely, and what you notice is when you do that, we can start to feel the way that we can stretch just before the top note, which means perhaps a slower bow change, yeah? The second phrase, you have quavers inside of the crescendo. Can you now not lose the line during those quavers, but really continue? The line we're going to have to stop in a second. Okay. You play and you're losing the line just because you're at the tip and you're on a down bow. So here you need to play here. And sorry. So with a real sense of the phrase continuing, yeah? There's so much more we could work on. I want you to be feeling all the way through meter much more strongly. Rhythm is an incredibly important aspect of Brahms. When you play a syncopation, the nature of a syncopation is that you're playing off of in a reactive way to the piano. Mm-hmm. So it can be much more exciting if you're feeling like the syncopation is generated by Evgeny's beats, yeah? And you're playing a lot more reactively. We've got to stop, otherwise we're not going to get, but there are a few ideas there, okay? Well done. Thank you, beautiful playing.
Tokuji, I'll play the first movement of Beethoven Fifth Sonata.
Bravo, well done. So lots of things better from when you played in the lesson. Terrific. Tell me what you feel now you would like to add to this, or you feel you would like more of, or...
I think a lot of the chamber music things that we were talking about, it's like the phrasings were better. I think I want more contrast and more sudden contrast.
I would agree, absolutely. We talked about the notion of contrast being so important in Beethoven, and he was a composer of extremes, and the notion of this sonata particularly being in a pastoral key of F major with this beautiful sort of symmetry in the beginning that's then disrupted by events that happen in a very condensed amount of time, and that require that immediacy and that drama all of a sudden. And I think some of them are working and some are not quite.
Yeah.
Another aspect, I think a lot of the chamber music elements, they are better, but I still feel like you need to listen more to Natalia, and the dialogue needs to still be more reactive. Okay. In other words, it still feels to me like sometimes you're not quite connected with what's happening, because it might be uncomfortable to do something different to what you've planned to do in the practice room. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So having that connection on the stage in a very real way, where you're really connected and listening, and you're trying something in the moment, can feel unsettling. But I want you to go there and have faith that what's going to come out is not going to dismantle your interpretation. In fact, it will enhance.
Right.
So I also think sometimes the characterization can be more sharply defined with the articulation.
Okay.
So a little bit of a giveaway with listening is the ensemble. So in the development section, you're often a little behind because you're doing your own thing, but you're not quite listening to what's happening in the piano.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the ensemble gets a little bit rocky. So let's try just a few things because we've hardly got any time. We're not going to go from the beginning, but we're going to go from where you have, well, let's go back to the fortissimo. Yeah, from here. Good. Okay, so a few elements here. The fortissimo feels to me like every note has a diminuendo. Dee, ta, da, dee, da. Can you think of the line? Can you think of the sforzando within more of a sense of sustain? So sforzandi in a row in Beethoven always meaning crescendo. And then make the decrescendo a surprise. So the whole point we were talking about yesterday is that the events in Beethoven that create the contrast, what we need to focus on is the element of surprise, because that was never expected. Yeah. A decrescendo from fortissimo to piano in half a bar is extreme. And I get the sense you're already anticipating the decrescendo very early. Can you make sure that your vibrato and your bow distribution don't allow the energy to dissipate before the decrescendo? Good. Yes, but keep the, you play this. I'm sorry, Natalia. You're just doing one oscillation of vibrato in the sforzandi note. Can you keep the vibrato through the bow changes, through the notes? The vibrato is energy. Yeah? Okay, so good. This is better. Can we listen to the line, which is ascending, just without you, just out with you from the chords? Yeah. Does she arrive at the top or does she come away at the top?
She arrives.
She arrives. Go with that. Yeah? Let's just play, to save time, it would be great to go from fortissimo. Let's just go from piano. Good. Yeah. Now, how do we make a crescendo? If we're playing a long note,
Bow speed and pressure.
bow speed, weight, let's say weight, not pressure. Yeah. What's another way of generating a sense of the sound gaining an intensity?
We can move it towards the bridge.
Yeah, but this is, okay, bow, speed, weight, contact point. Yes. What else?
Vibrato.
Vibrato. Yeah. So make, I think you've got a beautiful vibrato, but you don't use it in a way that's going to enhance your musical intent. Your musical intent is a crescendo. You're trying to follow the line. Make sure your vibrato is not just automatically at a speed, but it's reacting to what's happening. Good. Now you can play. This is better. Good. This is better, but you're playing. You sort of drop off a cliff immediately, and the energy is lost. Can you think through the phrase a little more? That we're not going from where we have nowhere else to go, yeah? So there's a contour, a little bit of a contour. Mm-hmm. That's great. Very good, Tokuji. The next thing is just, in general, when you play chamber music and you're sitting in a quartet and you're playing something that is being defined or being led by an inner part, where is the focus of your connection? It's probably to that instrument, isn't it? I notice a lot of the time when you're playing with piano and you're playing something that's not generating the phrasing, but Natalia has something that's generating the phrasing, your focus is like as if you're taking center stage and it's all about your G. It's not really all about your G here, is it? Yeah, I would say there's much more connection to be had. And if you connect more physically to the piano, you're going to actually listen in a different way. Okay. So this isn't about superfluous movement. It's just about a feeling of directing your consciousness. You have to be open and available always when you play chamber music to your pianist. Yeah. Now, open and available also means physically you are open. It's interesting that when we take our eyes away from our left hand and our contact point, and our eyes are more in space, done studies on this, it affects your hearing. So your peripheral vision also affects your peripheral hearing. Isn't that weird? If we do this sometimes, it can really focus everything in. And if we just take ourselves out a little and we're available, you'll notice more detail. You'll react a little more. We don't need to play that again. Play the next section with that in mind. And I want this to be a lot more spontaneous. So let's forget what you've practiced and let's just have a conversation. Great. Okay, it's quite different, but it made much more sense. Before, what was happening is it was a bit like when we worked in the lesson. You played one idea, but with one direction. Natalia played something different. You didn't react in a way that connected. So it seemed as though you were having two conversations in two separate rooms. Right? So, good. Then articulation and character that I mentioned. I still feel a lot of the time there's something in here that doesn't capture the contrast. Can you listen to Natalia's line and listen to the articulation in the left hand of the piano? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear how bouncy that is? Can you try to catch that? Yeah. And it's almost like you're catching her note and you're sort of elevating that left hand. And different harmony, different articulation. Yeah. So that something has to happen in the minor, doesn't it? Yeah. So could you try them both again? Can we find a contrast now? First one? Okay, but sorry. You still need to follow the crescendo. Yep. So both times crescendo, but still find a difference. Good. I would say just That's a little better because you're now focusing in on a musical intent behind what you're doing. You're thinking about something. Not so much as coming out in terms of difference.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to try something. Which is more dramatic?
I think the second one's more dramatic.
Okay, so how could you make it more dramatic?
Could be a sharper articulation.
Okay, great. Anything else? Let's think, when we create drama, particularly in Beethoven, drama is usually about extreme.
Yeah.
Of harmony, of rhythm. Something is happening, of dynamic in an extreme way. Can you be a little more extreme about the crescendo, about the articulation, and the beginning is somehow in a minor, suddenly, maybe it's more articulate, but maybe it's not so present in the dynamic. So you almost come from deeper, and you go more. So everything is more exaggerated. Yeah. Yeah, good. And to make more articulation, more bite, and give a little more attack. So more catch on each one as you go up. You're using your fingers, but also your arm to just generate more energy. Just do the minor. Oh, the
Minor.
which it? Yeah. Conversation. So, yeah, I would just suggest if she does this, can you react to that? Can you answer it just with more presence of voice? Yeah. Well done. Good. Yeah, I think if you can think about your sonata much more, we're going to finish, but if you can think about, in Beethoven, you understand that contrast and extreme is part of his writing. And in a sonata like this, how that's generated, the juxtaposition of something that is serene, comforting, content with sudden events. And then you can find ways, go in to find ways of articulating that much more concisely, much more definitively. So there's a real difference. And then conceptualize of your sonata playing far more like chamber music. So everything that's happening is a result of collaboration. It hasn't happened in your practice room. You wouldn't practice your second violin part of your string quartet in isolation and play exactly the same way in the quartet. It wouldn't make sense. Yeah. So I think if you can work and be much more even physically available here, you'll find that you play with more imagination. You'll have a lot more ideas when you come away from a rehearsal about possibilities for your interpretation, about phrasing. There's more than one way, and you need to be available and open to explore that. She's going to bring all of her ideas to the rehearsal and to the performance, to the experience, and you want that to feed in to what you're doing, so it becomes a collaboration. Does that make sense? Yeah. Very good. Well done. Thank you. Bravo, Nikita, well done. So, just for those in the class, or actually it could be anyone, I just open the class up to some comments about this first section. Let's focus on this introduction movement, yeah, and what we think might be something that could be added or enhanced in Nikita's playing or put in this performance. Any ideas at all from anyone? Yeah, Mia.
3 or 2.
This is in the habanera or in the beginning?
In the
Okay. Tee-ra-dum, party. Yeah, the habanera section you're thinking. Okay, yes, absolutely. Good. What about if we just focus on the opening rather than the habanera? Any thoughts? Stunned silence, it was so good. I would like to hear two things. Obviously, we need to have a tempo established, so you wanted a slightly slower tempo than the orchestra. That's fine, we got into that tempo. But because you slowed it down, there was a sense that there wasn't a tempo you were latched into, and therefore the rhythm didn't quite make sense, and you weren't able to find that groove of the dance. What about the character of the sound? We've talked about so much already, I'm not going to repeat myself, lots about Carmen's character, but there's a certain seduction in the sound that you have to captivate with immediately, yeah? I think we can find that. What I'd like you to think about now, as we play the opening, is I'd like you to focus ahead slightly more on the intent of your sound and exactly what you want in that sound. I always feel when you're playing, just then, for example, you get to and it's good, but it feels like your mind is slightly behind your hands. And I want you to be a split second ahead of everything that you're doing musically, which equates to technically as well. So let's just try the beginning, maybe just a couple of bars. Great, good, very nice, good. Try to anticipate even a little more that sound that you want, so that it's at the front of the note. So I hear your vibrato starts sort of, and usually it's just a fraction late. Can you find the sound? And find a little more flexibility here. So if we're more stable on our feet, just more flexibility in this knuckle, yeah? To get that warmth into the sound. Good. Yeah, a little better. Do we want tee-da-dum or tee-da-dum? The first one. Okay. So let's just practice without the piano. Can you just practice the physicality of that with the bow? I think you'd also, when you start, things are a little stiff, and it feels as though you can't always get the nuance with the bow that you're after. Just try that, the bow. That's great, yeah. Find the angle that you want. What angle do you want on the string? A little more outside, C string, yeah. Okay, good. Let's add everything. Let's think ahead. So everything's happening before it happens. Yeah? And at the bottom, keep your left hand going. Yeah, at the bottom. Find that. Everything's happening ahead. When you just, maybe we have 2 bars. See, there's a rhythm to play off of. Good. Very nice. One more time. You just, maybe let's do 4 bars so you're ready to play. And the sound's already there when you're coming in. Yeah, so it's not C string. Good. Keep the vibrato, Nikita. So yeah, always the sound out. Good. This is getting better. Nice. Can you feel the rhythm? Yeah, you can feel that. You're always playing off of that beat. That's got to be really strong. One last time. Bold heroicism or her strength of character. Can we find that? Right, so it feels as though you're just late for the beginning of each new element. Yada-pa-pa-bum means to be prepared. So again, can you focus ahead a little more? And I want you on your... Can you just do that open strings? Find a... Yeah, let the physical gesture lead the character here. Good. A little more freedom and more bite in the gesture. So try to find more attack at the beginning with the fingers. So the main thing here is that you're not squeezing the bow in the air. So as soon as you squeeze the bow when you're in the air, you don't allow for the give when you hit the string, which catches. So as soon as you're losing the front of the note. So just do it once slowly. Can you get more even catch on the up bow with the fingers? Even more bite. That's it, go under the string, absolutely. So you're aiming for here. Great, and now a little more gesture with the arm. Great. Okay, let's just try that with the left hand. without the piano first? Just da-da-da-da-dum. It's a little better. I want you to get this and the retake as one. So your preparation's the same as the down bow stroke. First one worked great, and then the second one, still need to find your articulation, yeah? Great, let's do that with piano. Great, and of course, now we turn on a dime, and she's suddenly all seductive and coquettish again, yeah? So, again, it feels like that character is just upon you and you haven't prepared the sound. Can you imagine the sound you want here, just for a moment? Yeah. And then find the way that you're going to approach the string to find the sound at the beginning of that note. Does it make sense, what I'm saying? How would you say you feel in terms of, in that moment when the tempo changes, sorry, the character changes just like that. Is it comfortable? Yeah, you seem as though you're not quite in the sound and in the comfort of what you want, yeah? So just find it first before we condense it. So suggest two things. The bow comes down to the string with your breath, yeah? And you're feeling the vibrato, the sound in the vibrato before you play. So the vibrato's there. Yes, right? Great. Yeah, it's coming. And then we have this lovely Spanish cross rhythm. You have to feel, if you want us to hear that cross rhythm, you need to vibrate the first note of the slur, don't you? To accentuate where the slurs are displaced. Okay, it needs work, but it's much more convincing. Can we just try that? 1 minute? Yep. Let's try. You did so well. That was great. But let's try this with the piano right there. Good. Very good. I want you to think, though, imagine the vibrato ahead, the breathing ahead, the way you approach the string ahead. It was still better, but it was upon you too suddenly. You know, everything that we play is coming from a direction in our brain. Yeah, there's muscle memory, but that muscle memory is in your brain still, right? And if you focus on the musical intent a split second before you play, so you focus on the feeling, the character of what you want before you play it, it's a fantastic way of keeping you centered in performance on the music. Do you know that feeling when we go to play and we're playing and it feels like we're slightly disconnected from our hands and our bow and everything that's going, and it feels like we're almost witnessing a movie of ourselves playing, but we're not quite there. We all know what that feels like sometimes when we get up and perform. Sometimes it takes a while to settle in. If you focus much more on what you're about to play and what the feeling of that is, the sound, the character, and the feeling that generates in the hands to create that sound and character, you can be much more in the moment. If you try to be in the moment in a performance, the moment's gone. It's too late. It's happened. And that's what I think a huge element when we're performing of being in the moment. We're all trying to be in the moment and have those wonderful moments where we just feel so connected in the moment, in the performance, to what we're expressing. When we try to do that, we actively force that, we're usually behind the moment. The moment's passed and we always feel like, oh, but I'm not quite there, I'm not quite there. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you need to think, I think, a lot more ahead. And it's going to help. Everything needs more work, but it sounds so much better when you're working in this way. You get something right from the beginning. Okay, good. Well done. Can you introduce?
Hi everyone, my name is Harry and Yishai, and I'm playing the second movement of Beethoven's Violin Concerto.
Great. Okay, thank you, Harry. Tell me what's unusual about this movement.
Well, one unusual thing is that it stays in the same key pretty much the whole time.
Absolutely. That's very unusual, isn't it? We really never get away from that far away from G major at all. What do you think that means when you come to perform this?
Like in terms of how I approach it, or
Yeah, how does that, the fact that you're not modulating and you don't have a lot of interest harmonically, what does that mean for you as a performer to keep the audience's interest?
I guess somehow finding a way to sustain atmosphere,
Uh-huh.
so that there's still like attention and interest without there being like that much of a narrative sort of direction.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'd just say a few things. Another unusual thing is you never get to play the theme. Isn't that like really unusual? You are always, in this opening theme and variations section, you are always answering or decorating what's happening in the orchestra. And that's very unusual, and that requires, along with static harmony, it requires incredible coloration, doesn't it, to keep our interest. So I think you need to explore the variety of sound that you bring to be able to sustain an atmosphere. Absolutely. So variety of sound for sure. I feel as though some of your decisions don't quite relate, maybe, harmonically, even something basic like tam, pam, pi, ta, pa, 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 pi, pa, pa. We have da, pa, pa, pam, dominant ta, ti, resolution. And maybe when you play really strongly the second time, then your second entry, every time you have a second iteration of your answering, you decide to play strongly off the last statement. Not sure that always convinced me, but I want to look firstly at how you're going to decorate what's happening in the orchestra and find a lot more variety in the sound. The second section is it's a strange movement because the theme and variations section kind of finishes, and then we get this almost sort of improvisatory-like second theme here. And it felt as though you weren't in that world of allowing us to feel in that moment like you're not quite sure where you're going in your melisma, in your fast notes. You just played a G and then you played everything fast. And the next one, your next note, everything quick. So there wasn't a sense that you're gradually finding your way out of something that's free. Does that make sense? I think you can pace that much, much more. The third element is where the pizzicato comes in. We have this wonderful sense that everything is turned into a delicate dance. What's the marking that he writes there?
Sempre perdendosi.
Right, which is what? It's telling you gradually the energy is dissipating and everything is becoming less and less, and you're dying away to the most still, serene moment of contemplation where you arrive here. Yeah, at this moment where the harmony really slows down, yeah? There's also the most gorgeous, beautiful chorale-like section, yeah? Where we have, first it's in the strings, of course, and the second time, what's the instrumentation? We didn't play it, but
Horns coming?
it's winds, yeah? And that changes the color that's behind you. So that could be, and he decorates that chorale. So that could be a more expressive statement. Your vibrato in that first statement was very wide, it was very slow. I was drawn to hearing. You have to be very careful maybe not to vibrate too much. Especially the second statement, you don't want the vibrato too wide. The winds are not going to be vibrating crazily. Yeah? But in that first statement, we need to find something that is got more of the atmosphere you talked about. There's maybe something more spiritual. Perhaps this is more supplicative. It's like, there's a sense of being elevated there beyond an earthly realm, right? Into something meditative and contemplative. Let's explore a few of these things in 2 minutes. So I thought the tempo was really good. If the tempo is too slow, it turns into a funeral march. We don't want that. This is like a processional of violins in the distance that gradually grow closer. I think there were maybe the time probably maximum of 8, maybe 10 violins in total in Beethoven's orchestra, all with like wooden mutes on. You can imagine what that sounded like, yeah? So you have to be very careful when you play this of bow speeds suddenly scooting off, because you want team pam pa pa ti 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 ti. You want it to be an answer. You want it to be something that dissipates. Can you think of a bow speed that is constant, but it's just ever so slightly separated? Rather than 3 separate notes, you have one note that's separated into 3. So sorry, well, I'm playing wrong articulation. I meant to play this. So we have 4 notes separated. Yeah? So here, just be feeling like you're taking the beat as your impulse. Good. And let's just focus once on the resonance of the instrument. So these notes being, the open string notes being really, really pure, so we get that beauty of the resonance. Yeah, all that purity. Can you play your D first? Can you find the... Maybe we're different tuning, but no, that's all right. Good. Here your major third is not too high. That's getting there. Lovely. Now I want you to finesse the sound with poco vib. So the idea of the vibrato here is that it's just helping to finesse that character. It's just helping to, or finesse the color rather, and just helping to send your sound out, yeah? Keep your major third a little lower. Nice. I know I'm fussing about it, but you also have to prepare the string crossing a little more. Sorry. Good. Prokofiev. Lovely. Let's try it with the piano. And then the second time, I want you, in your second answer, to make a contrast. Can we just try it not playing louder this time? On the resolution? Yeah. Feel the pulse. Good. Great. Look, that's the start of something much more beautiful. Okay. With coloration, you need to experiment. With vibrato, you need to experiment with bow speed. We need to have a sense that any string crossings are not causing a bump. There can't be sudden accelerations in the bow, yeah? And your vibrato can be used sparingly, but it needs to be very consciously applied. A vibrato that's sudden and big will generally generate a sudden bow speed as well with what you're doing, yeah? Okay, we're going to jump. There's more activity, there's more coming in as this is decorated the next time, yeah? But can we go to, because we've got 30 seconds, can you go to, yeah? Good. Don't let us know where your improvised line is going so immediately. And try not to start late with the vibrato. So try not to play. So we're just feeling, we're settling on the chord with the orchestra. And then. And the next statement gradually. Yeah, we're gradually gaining confidence in our direction. Yeah, that still has, you're still a little bit bulgy. So don't start right at the heel. You don't need the entire bow. So you can control the sound. Okay. Nice, next. And find it, keep going. Good. Harry, we have to stop. We've talked about lots of things, you can explore them, okay? Well done. Okay.
My name is Viloin. I will play a Prokofiev, second concerto, first movement.
sorry you didn't get to play more of it, Eilon. Bravo! Okay, so we've heard this a couple of times in lessons, but tell me how that felt before we discuss something.
It felt a bit rushing, but nice.
It felt pretty good, right? Yeah. You know, is it okay if I just talk about what you said to me earlier about? Yeah. Okay. No? All right. Okay. What I wanted to focus on is how you can find. I think what I was getting at, Eilon, is that I think that was better than you were maybe expecting. Right? That's fair to say, okay? So I think that went very well. And I think there's room to build. What we've been working on in lessons, we've been working on the physical stability of basically everything, from your balance coming from your feet to the stability of the violin, and generally not equating physical movements of your upper body, particularly this, with expression. Now, the great thing is, when you just played, is that I didn't notice so much of that happening. So, no, this is great. You didn't play, for example, you played me Bach this morning, and there was a lot of that in your playing to generate expression, like we talked about. It's not happening so much. The positioning of the violin is a little better. You're not going to extreme angles either. Yeah? So I sometimes feel that you're almost comfortable in your sound, but you don't still get exactly what you want all the time. Where would you say you would want something different to what you played?
I think number one, didn't feel like the crescendo was getting to a point. It felt like nothing. But
okay.
So I'd like to just feel it again.
Okay, sure. And how did the opening feel to you?
Okay.
Felt okay? Yeah? Okay, let's try from the opening one more time. I just want you to add one thing into your playing that I think would help. Okay? So you've got much more stability. If you want to find the color in the sound, we've been talking with other people about imagining ahead of time what you want. I think you need to breathe a lot more. And I have a feeling that a lot of what comes out is generated by holding your breath a little. And where are you going to play in your breath? So at what point in your breath are you going to play your first note? Yeah, about 3/4 of the way through your out breath. So we don't do... Everyone says breathe before you play, and everyone... But breathe out and allow the bow to be... The end of your breath is the bow. Yes, so you're feeling... Yeah? Can you imagine the sound that you want? Imagine the resonance, imagine the feeling of the sound. Take your feet slightly wider so you feel really stable before you begin. Can you hear the B flat? Beautiful. Very good. Very good. Excellent. You had a lot more resonance in the sound. The sound was in flow. It was in motion. Did that make sense? It felt better, didn't it? Can you be careful when you play? Then you play. And suddenly I'm wondering what's going to happen to the sound at that point. Yeah. So I want you to keep from wandering. And I want you to keep from twisting at this point. You need to just center yourself in the sound, find the sound, take confidence from your opening phrases, yeah? Just try the beginning one more time. Stay balanced. Stay balanced. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Now, I'm not working on musical detail like saying, you know, you're not vibrating this note, you're not vibrating that note. We're working on a big picture in front of everyone because I want you to get the sensation of what it's like to feel that confident in the opening of this concerto. It's very difficult to start, but that was pretty good, wasn't it? Wow. Yeah, bravo. Really. You know, 3 days ago when you played, every second or third note collapsed. You know, they would never know that. You just played with a fantastically consistent quality through the entire opening in front of a full hall, right? So you can take confidence from that, yeah? Very good. Okay, you're here to stop. Well done. I know I'm gone over time, I'm sorry. We can't play? No? No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We'll do something on instead. That's it. I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone, and my apologies for going over time. It's difficult to give everyone a go and do something worthwhile, but... All right. Yeah, I know. She was thinking of not...